I looked at Van Halen's picking, and he was doing stuff like, it seemed, I don't know how he does it, but he would make his pick go, a lot of movement in his picking, and he'd go very fast. He'd do this. I can't do it, but you know what I mean. He'd just go really fast, like that. So I tried that, and it just didn't work. It wasn't working for me, so I slowed back down and I started playing Malcolm Young rhythm guitar. Then a few years later, when I got into the more thrash metal, I noticed two sets of people. There was the James Hetfields, who would always have this great, this really good fast up and down picking, but he also was able to do stopping and starting with his pick. He could go. He could do that on the Kill 'Em All album. He was doing that. I can't remember the songs, but there's a lot of great tunes on that album. And it was more of a shuffle, like he was able to start and stop his picking. And then I listened to Slayer's Jeff Hanneman and Kerry King, and that changed things for me too, because the Slayer guys were doing this. They were going for the more speed, messy speed stuff. So I kind of thought, well, Slayer and early Metallica are my favorite bands for years when I was younger, still are. And how could I do both? So I spent a year learning James Hetfield's picking, and then I spent another year learning Slayer's picking. And when I say a year, I actually mean 6, 7, 8 hours every day. And not just playing that, but spending a good hour or two a day working on the picking. But I would analyze, I'd watch videos, and I'd say, how does Jeff Hanneman pick so fast? How does Kerry King do it? And James Hetfield. So anyway, I ended up doing both. And one of the techniques I learned was when you cross those players, the way to have the tightness but the speed is to take the pick, you can see that, and if you pick down like that, it takes you time to come back to the string, so to pick it again. So I realized, okay, well, if I just do small movements and the pick doesn't go very far away from the string, I can go a lot faster and control it. But to do that, you can't really use, well, maybe I can't tell. With these cameras, you can tell, but when I go fast, it feels like my shoulder is shaking. It feels like a controlled, we call it spasm, I think, in English. But it's like a shaking. And this muscle here, for some reason, grows much bigger than the other one, and it's probably from what I'm doing. Anyway, you can see on the camera what I'm doing. I'm just taking a... Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, but you can probably see it. But I know there's movement there, but that's because it's going so fast. But you can see that the pick is not going far away from the string. And then as far as the Hetfield type picking, it's those fast parts, I'm just touching the strings again. But for the, I'm really hitting it, and that's what Hetfield does. The reason that started was my mother got me into classical guitar lessons, and of course with the classical guitar, you put it between your legs, and you play like this, and you put your, if you can see back here, the thumb, I don't know if you can see this, but the thumb in classical is usually supposed to be back here, and that gives all 4 fingers flat surface to play, and you can stretch, like I can stretch very far with my fingers this way. Most players will have their thumb up. A lot of rock players have their thumb up, and that's great. It works good for guitar players that do a lot of feel. But for speeds, well, Malmsteen I think has his thumb up too, but and he's super fast. But most players, for the speed, they have to put their thumb down. You put your thumb back, and now you can stretch. When I put my thumb up, I can't stretch anymore. See my fingers going this way? So, put my thumb back like classical position, and the Flying V happens to be the best guitar to be like a classical guitar. It fits right here. A lot of times people will grab Flying Vs that don't play them, and they will put them on their leg, and this is what happens. Oomph, it falls down. So most people go, fuck, I don't like Flying Vs. You know, that's what happens. They say, oh, I don't like those guitars. But that's why I had them put this rubber thing on here, in case somebody wants to do it this way. It won't slip off But for me, its classical position is there. So, ta-da, you can play some beautiful classical music. When I was younger, as soon as I had the Boss overdrive pedal on, then everything was messy and terrible. My playing was sloppy and horrible. So I had to figure out, how do I make the other strings stop ringing? So I always needed these kind of Les Paul style bridges where you've got the tailpiece in the bridge. I can never play with a Floyd Rose or any of those guitars, because my style is you have to be able to put this part of your hand down on the strings, and I have to be able to stop the other strings from ringing. So when I'm playing, I'm sometimes actually rolling this hand, and this part of my hand is stopping the strings from vibrating. Yeah, you can see right here, when I'm playing one note, what you don't see is underneath is this part of my hand is stopping all these strings from ringing. Okay, you see how the hand goes down? That keeps all the others, that keeps all the other strings from ringing when I'm playing one note. It's a combination of the palm muting, I guess they call it, and then when you can't mute all the strings, that's what your left hand would be for, is you can use your pinky finger or another part of your hand to mute it. The hard part, of course, is when you're soloing and you're going across the strings. Different parts of my hand are lying on the string. I don't think about it, but I guess it's something it evolves and develops because you get sick and tired of the strings buzzing and making noises while you're playing. So somehow you put a part of your hand down on the string to stop it. So.